We just want to give you a brief overview of what we are looking for the Broward 4-H Community Fair videos and photos. I know it's an extra challenge, but for the safety of our community and for everyone involved, we're doing this entirely virtually, but we're here to help you, and hopefully you can learn some things too along the way as you're creating your projects. So just a reminder for the video, or for your fair entries, I should say, if you're doing an exhibit, your exhibit should have a 1 to 3 minute video and one photo of your exhibit. So we'll talk about how to make that photo next. If you're doing a talk or share the fun or a speech, you should submit one video, and then fast interview is a video and 3 photos. And all of this is also on our fair website. So please look at our website so that you can keep track of what's expected, because it's really important that you read the rubrics and the guidelines so that you know how you will be scored and what's expected of you. So most of your score will be based on the video that you create. And so you'll want to show the item from all possible views. That's really why we're making a video, is so people can see your item in action. Excuse me. And you'll want to highlight areas of interest for your item that you're submitting to the fair. You want to describe the process you used. So that's the materials, the methods, the time you spent, how much it cost to make it. And you'll want to say how it relates to your 4-H goals. And your 4-H goals, in 4-H, we don't want you just to learn archery. We want you to learn how to keep a record, how to stay organized, how to be a leader, how to be patient, how to give back to others. So your 4-H goal can be something beyond your club's project. So maybe if your club does archery or gardening, but you're submitting something that might not be specifically related to those skills, think about what other goals you want to meet in 4-H, and make sure you mention that in your video. And these videos shouldn't be that long. You should keep them 1 to 3 minutes in length, and that goes by really quickly when you're filming. So just keep that in mind. And these are due in about 2 weeks on March 27th. But Miss Elizabeth and I are happy to help you between now and then. So to make your actual video, there's a lot of different methods you can use. You can use Zoom, your phone, a tablet, or a digital camera. And I'll kind of cover these really briefly. So for Zoom, I used Zoom when I made my example video here for the fair, because I didn't have anyone to help me film it. So Zoom is helpful if you don't have someone who can help hold the camera for you. And you can do this if you do like what I did. I create a meeting just by myself. It was only me in the Zoom meeting. But we can also, me or Miss Elizabeth can set up a Zoom meeting for you, and we can do the recording for you if you'd like. Just let us know. When I did my recording, I made sure to save my recording to my computer. So it generated an MP4 file. And when I was doing that, I can also pause and start the video as I needed. So if I needed to swap something out, or I needed to pause and collect my thoughts, I was able to do that. So Zoom is one way that you can record your video. You can use a phone. A lot of people will probably use a phone. And when you're filming with your phone, you'll want to make sure that your phone goes wide. I'm sorry, I'm getting a text that someone has the wrong password in here for our meeting. Okay. Miss Elizabeth, can you reach out to Miss Stacia, please, and make sure she's able to participate?
Absolutely, I'll do that now.
Thanks. So when you're filming, make sure your phone goes wide. So, often we have it up and down like this, but make it go wide. This will help us see your item in the screen. And use the back camera on your phone. It's better quality than the selfie camera. And it's helpful to have someone else film you. That way they can provide feedback on the framing and let you know if they need to adjust it. And if you need to have them zoom in on a feature you're describing on your camera, it's better for them to actually move their camera closer to the item than to use the zoom feature. If they use the zoom feature, the quality of the film might go down. So to start filming, you'll want to plan ahead by making a script. And here's an example script that I made. So I wanted to make sure I covered all the items in the rubric and all the expectations. So I want to introduce myself first, then the item, then talk about the methods and materials I used. And if you make a script first, you can make sure you include everything that's expected of you, and then you can practice, and then you can time yourself. So if it's way too short or way too long, you can edit your script before you really start filming. And then with that script, you'll want to record in chunks. So I took my script, and for instance, if I'd introduce myself, I would just film that introduction. It might only be 5 seconds long. That's fine. The reason I do this is that for one, I make sure I actually hit all those topics in my script. The really important reason I do this is that it's easier for me to fix mistakes. If I film myself introducing myself, that's great. I introduce my item, great. But if in the methods and materials, I make a mistake, I forget something, I start rambling, I don't have to film the whole thing all over again. I just have to go back and film my methods and materials section. So that's why I like to do it in chunks like that, because then you can always film it, watch it. If you don't like it, delete it. If you do, keep it and go on to the next one. So you'll record those in the order that you'll want your final presentation to be in. Make sure when you're doing your clip, you'll pause briefly before ending so it doesn't look too choppy when you're filming it. And then a lot of the video editing, which we'll talk about at the end, we'll use transitions to combine all those clips. So iMovie is very popular if you have an iPhone, and when you compile all those clips that you filmed, you can use a transition. So Dissolve is a very popular transition to use, and I use that in some of my examples on the website. So you can see it kind of has the pictures kind of dissolve one into the other, so it's not quite so choppy. And if you need help on the video editing, just reach out and I'm happy to help walk you through that. Let's see. So composition. So here's some examples of some shot angles. You'll want to be conscious of what angle the camera is held at. So you'll probably most likely want the camera to be at eye level. So you'll see in this little cartoon here, eye level, he's staring right at the camera. The camera's not too far down, looking up his nose. It's not looking down on him. Eye level is important because it gives the viewer the most confident and accurate portrait of you. This is an interview. Well, it's not an interview. You're going to interview later for your exhibits, but you can think of it as a presentation. You want to look confident. You don't want a distorted view either. You want them to see you and your item really clearly. So make sure, it helps if you're on Zoom, you can adjust your computer screen. If someone else is filming you, then they can help you figure out what the best angle is for you. And then when you're filming, be conscious of the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds is a common term in photography. So if you're looking at a photo, if you divide the photo into thirds, basically that's where the eye is drawn, is to those third sections. So in this video example, this was just a snapshot of a UF video made. This woman's in the center, she's the speaker, but she's highlighting the meat section in a grocery store. So that takes up another third of the frame. So when you're talking about your object for the fair, you can hold it, obviously don't block your face, but it might be helpful to hold it on one of the third screens so that way people can see it clearly. The focus is drawn to that, but as the presenter, you're clearly in focus and you're also a big part of the video itself. So I would recommend, I don't always do this in my example videos, of holding things off to the side so people can see it clearly, but it's centered in the third of your screen. You'll want to make sure whoever is filming you has a steady hand. Nothing is worse than watching a video that's kind of shaking all over. It's very distracting. If you're having them move to come zoom in on your object, make sure they move slowly. If they move too fast, it's very jarring and can make some people feel dizzy on the screen. One helpful tip if someone's filming you is to have them hold their arms close to their body. If they hold their camera out here, away from their body to try to film you and see, they might start shaking. So have them hold their arms close and they can watch you with the camera close to their body. You can also do like this picture shows and have a tripod or some other accessory to prop your phone. And make sure your audio is clear and not distracting. So it's helpful to be close to your device. We want to be able to see your project, we want to see you, but we also want to hear what you're saying. So make sure that your audio quality is good and beware of ambient noise. Like right now I have a baby chewing on some plastic for some crackers. That's distracting. Do you have airplanes flying overhead? Do you have the dishwasher running? Be aware of what ambient noise is going on around you. And that's another great reason to have your video filmed in short clips. Because if you realize, oh, the dog started barking when I was talking about my, my 4-H goals, you can just refilm that one segment and your whole video doesn't need to be refilmed. Lighting, we'll talk about this a little bit more when I talk about the photo, but lighting is really important. It can highlight your project or it could become a distraction. Probably the most recommended is indoor light mixed with natural light. However, you see in the top photo, she had some sunlight coming in, but she stood in front of the window with the blinds open behind her. So what she should have done was she should have stood next to the window or have the window in front of her, and maybe the camera person in front of the window. If you, for whatever reason, you can't do that configuration, make sure you close the blinds behind you. Otherwise, it creates that backlit effect. Outdoors is another option, especially here in Florida, but you'll want to avoid middle of the day because it can create shadows. We often have really nice lighting in the early morning or the early afternoon. So you might want to try filming at those times of the day. And you'll want to be aware of really bright light and a white background because it can really wash out the image, which is what we see in the bottom photo. So lighting's important. And then your background, you'll want to limit distractions. So film in a quiet place, and the actual background of your video should be a blank wall. If you're outside, maybe just some like a fence or a hedge, something that isn't going to distract the viewer from what's going around you. And finally, when you have your video, there's a lot of free resources out there to edit the video. And I'm happy to go into these options more in detail, maybe one-on-one. It's hard to cover them all right now, but for an iPhone, iMovie is very popular and very easy to use. Canva and Adobe Spark are also free websites you can use to throw video images in and you can edit them that way. And the website for the fair has a lot of videos on how to use these and different ideas for Android phones and other users. So now I'm going to stop sharing that presentation and I'm going to, is there any questions right now about video? I'm actually going to pull up the photo one right now and we'll cover lighting a little bit more in that too. All right.
If you have questions and you don't want to say them out loud, you can also type them in the chat.
And all right, so Miss Elizabeth, can you see my photo?
Yes, you are good.
So taking a photo. So we want to make sure to focus our item. So you see here, these are great examples where these cookies are taking up most of the photo. We can see the different details. This mug is here nice in the center. We can see it up close because we'll have the video to show your item to the judges, but we want to make sure that they really see the detail. They really understand what you did. And this photo is one way that we're going to do that. And so using your phone, which is probably what most people will do, just remember to use the back camera. So again, it's probably, don't use a selfie camera. You can't really see that well anyway using the selfie camera. Physically move closer or further away from the item instead of using the zoom feature so you get the best quality. We prefer landscape. So again, make your phone look wide like this example photo. But sometimes depending on what you're submitting for the fair, that might not be the best way your photo or your item is displayed because we don't want to have to rotate the photo. We want it exactly how you want it. So play around with it. We understand not every exhibit's going to follow the same rules and format. And then choose the best angle. So here's a different portrayal of shoes at different angles. And your item, it depends on what your goals are and what you're trying to display. So this is something you'll want to play around with. Right now I can tell you the low angle is probably not the angle you want for this item at least. We can't see the second shoe. We can't see the front design. And this slanted one isn't a great view either because we see inside the shoes, we can't really see the front of them. So be conscious of what angle you're using, and you don't have to use you don't have to use any old angle. Use what works best for your object, what details you want to highlight. So, if you aren't sure, play around with it. This is the same item photographed in different ways from different angles. Of course, this is zoomed up more, but here you can just see you can see the depth of the image that you don't see on the photo on the right. So play around and see what's best for your object. Again, lighting is really important because we want those details to come through in your photo. And there are many, many ways to achieve good lighting. When you see pictures on Instagram and on social media and websites, a lot of work goes into creating those photos. And of course, we don't all just have that kind of equipment around. Just remember your goals, that you want to avoid shadows, you want to have good, accurate lighting, you want to highlight the details. You don't need to have all this fancy equipment to do that either. Just some simple tips is to avoid using the flash that can overexpose your item. Use a window for natural light. Again, we're having the window off to the side, so it kind of shines some sunlight here. Here they have an open door. Outdoors, again, just like your video, in the early morning or late afternoon might be a really good time of day for you to be taking a photo. And if all else fails, if you have some flashlights, some other light source, you can aim 2 lights at the background on either side of your item, and that can reduce shadow and highlight your item as well. If you have too bright of a light source, you can do what they did in this photo, and you can hang a white sheet between your light source and the item if it's too bright. And so just like we saw in those pictures back there, the background of your item is actually really important too. We want to highlight your item, reduce those shadows, and not distract with the background. A plain white sheet often works best, or a piece of paper or other solid colored surface. So here again, we have that window off to the side, a white background. Here they just use like some brown paper. Try to find something that's not going to distract from your item. And finally, just take multiple photos, try different angles, try different light sources, and just remember your goals, that you want to show the details, focus on your item, and give the judges an accurate idea of your item. And I apologize again for the distracting noises. And I'll hand it over to Miss Elizabeth.
Do you guys have any questions about Miss Karen's presentation? Anything about your photography, your video that you want to ask? No? Okay. So do you have any questions? I'm just going to leave it a minute and give a minute to see if you respond.
No. Are we allowed to actually, if I was going to like submit like an art thing, can I just like, could I like submit like a video of me doing the art and then like a voiceover of me like saying about my, okay, a voiceover about me talking about 4-H and stuff?
Yeah, so you'll want to be sure you follow the rubrics that are on the website, because there are specific, we want to talk about our 4-H goals, we want to talk about how you made it. So yeah, if you wanted to have video clips of you doing the art, that would be fine. You just want to, like you said, talk over it and mention those things on the rubric, like your methods, your materials. I think that'd be great to see you doing your artwork. And then just make sure you see the at the end of the video and give us a photo of the finished piece too. Does that help?
Great question. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for a moment. We're just going to go through a few little pieces on interview skills. One moment, please. Okay. Okay, so everyone can see my interview skills presentation? Yes? Okay, great. So this is to help you prepare for the fair, but this is also something we do in general in 4-H. We have practice interviews. Now, why do we have interviews? Why do we have practice interviews in general? And there are several reasons. Basically, we want to provide the opportunity for you all to practice your skills, to practice speaking about what you're good at, what your opinions are, what your views are, because eventually you're going to need to be a part of an interview, whether it be for college or for work or for an award or for many other things. So that's why we have interviews in 4-H. So the interview tips, there's a few of them and they are pretty succinct. So first things first, show your enthusiasm. Be excited about your project. You guys have worked all year on this project, maybe less, maybe more on whatever you are sharing with the judge. Be excited, show your enthusiasm. Make sure to smile, sit up straight, maintain eye contact when you're speaking with them. You want to practice speaking for the exact reason of what I just did. You want to avoid things like, so. You don't want to use those filler words because it makes your speech less significant and doesn't kind of get the point across of what you're trying to share. Another thing to mention is when the interviewer asks you a question, you don't need to respond immediately. Take a minute. Compose yourself. Think about the question. How do you want to answer it? So the third point is to explain your project. I have some bullet points here in this graphic. So why did you make this project? How did you make this project? What materials did you use? What research did you complete? But also maybe you're doing archery. So what did you learn? Did you gain strength? There's many different areas of your project you can talk about. So make sure to give a whole picture of your project. So we're going to be doing virtual interviews, and there's a lot of important details in virtual interviews. I'm frozen. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Sorry, it was like before I was frozen.
Okay. Just making sure. So for virtual interviews, number one, have your camera on, please. We're going to be doing this as much as we can interactively, like we were in person. Something you want to do before your interview, get on your computer, make sure that your camera is working properly. And on that note, we're going to go to the third point, which is make sure your microphone works before you get on your interview. So turn on your computer, make sure your mic is working, make sure your camera is working. So when you're presenting yourself, try to sit up straight and wear professional clothing for your fair judging. If you are going to be in your home, try to make sure you have a neat and tidy space. So you don't want a very messy bedroom in the background, or if your family's all in the living room, hopefully you can find another space for you to go to where you can be quiet and have clear conversation with who you're talking to. And then the last piece is that if you have the option to use a webcam or a laptop, try to use that instead of your phone camera. It'll just make it a little bit easier for you to interact. I put some example questions for the fair here, which I've kind of mentioned already before this. So Ms. Karen also mentioned, how does this relate to your 4-H goals? What do you want others to learn from this? Each 4-H project has, a little service learning component typically. So you might have done some service learning where you shared information with your community or your club or your family. Be able to talk about the skills you developed. So if you've never done photography before, and this is your first time doing photography, what did you learn? So maybe I learned to use the rule of 2/3 to compose my image more attractively. Then be able to talk about your strengths and know your opportunities for improvement. So what went really well on this project? And the next one might be, what could you improve on if you did this again? So maybe you had a photography project and it went well, but you didn't know that you should have, your pictures of your image, your item in the center in focus. It was just a little bit blurry. So maybe that's something you could improve. And on this slide, I actually wanted to ask either of you if you have any questions right now, or if you wanted to talk about maybe what you're sharing at the fair, just in the sense that, like, what are your strengths? Go ahead, Zoe.
I'm sorry.
You don't want to say anything?
Oh, sorry. I-
I can't quite hear you. Maybe type it in the chat box. Hmm.
Sorry. I'm gonna do a drawing.
You're going to do a drawing?
Yeah, about like what? Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you had a specific question, but in that case, like when you're working on your drawing and the skills that you're achieving, so maybe you figured out how to do shading really well, and that's something you could talk about. Or maybe one of the other areas you could improve upon next time. That's something you want to just have those details ready for your interviewer. And all of these questions are things that you can find on the rubric for whichever project you guys are working on.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I couldn't quite hear you all that well, so if you have anything else to ask, please feel free. So just for you guys, you can do this. You've practiced all year, you've worked on this project. Just make sure that you check those few little details before you get on the call. Make sure your mic works. Make sure you go over the rubric. Practice talking to a family member if you need to, or if you want, chat with a friend about your project. The more you discuss the items that you've worked on or your presentation, the better you will be at talking to your interviewer. And that's it. So does anybody have any questions?
No, I don't got it. Got it.
Did you want to chat about anything, Bryce?
No, I don't got any questions.
No? Okay. You've done this before, so I figured it would be.
Yeah, I never done a video though, so.
Okay. Well, and we do have the example videos. There's a really fun one of me in a Clover costume on the website. So please feel free to go check them out. That one's for fashion review, but Miss Karen has made them too. Just showing you examples of how you're supposed to do everything.
And that's on the all that's on the website?
Yep, we made a bunch of videos.
Okay, we're gonna watch some of those for sure.
I even made up a fake 4-H club for it. Thunderwolves.
Okay.
And like I said, if you guys, and Miss Karen said this as well, if you need any help, we're here. We're here to help.